what kind of things are you seeing with the economy affecting training?
Well, one of the biggest questions that we seem to get from clients is what's required. I mean, as you mentioned, the economy. I mean, so, people aren't having a pile of cash just laying around to just throw at training. So they want to make sure that the money they spend not only on an analysis, but also on their qualified training is going to be actually what's required. So what is actually a requirement? What does OSHA say? It says something about classroom training.
It's pretty vague. The training to become a qualified person, there's a list of topics in OSHA. There's a list of topics in 70E. There are also specific things, specific hazards that may be particular to your facility and nobody else's, and those hazards have to be covered in this training. And the training has to go deeper than a lot of people think. For instance, one of the topics is a person has to know how to use a multimeter, a voltmeter, to determine the absence or presence of voltage. Some people think, well, that's a 10-minute meter class, and I can teach anybody to read a multimeter in 10 minutes. It's simple. However, it will take a much longer time to teach them how to use it and where in the circuit. So it's not just a simple meter class. You have to teach them the three-phase distribution system that's in their facility and all specific parts. So when they measure phase to phase and they get 480 and phase to ground, they get 277, they know what that means. Or if they measure phase to phase and get maybe 800 on one of them, but phase to ground they get 0, and the other phase to phase they get 5 volts. Well, they need to know what that means, and that could be an ungrounded system. So, okay. And there's corner grounded, all kinds of different things. And then when you get into control circuits, it gets even more complicated. So it's not just a 10-minute how to read your meter class. That's just one simple topic. So it needs to go deeper than most people think. And no company can qualify your employees, and
that's when we get a lot. I don't know where this information's coming from. Maybe it's the website. Maybe it's seminars that someone is putting on. But we get that all the time. We want you to come in and certify and qualify our people because we need certification through OSHA and through 70E, and it doesn't exist. No, I mean, you're required to have qualified people, and those people are required to have training, but that's one we get. Yeah. That's one we get a lot.
Training is just a piece of this qualification.
Absolutely.
You have to train people, and then they have to demonstrate to you that they're doing it properly. You can't just train them, say, okay, you're done, go out and play. You have to make sure they're doing it properly, and then when you do find them doing it properly, certify that, put that in the log, because that's one thing OSHA's going to ask,
Absolutely.
Let's see the training log. How are these people actually qualified to do this kind of work? And only the employer can qualify their employees. No outside firm can come in and wave a magic wand and make it happen.
No, they can. I mean, they could take thousands of hours of training from an outside vendor, and in no way does it make them qualified at all. And that's you touched on something there that I explain a lot of times to a client. In the unfortunate event that someone injures a worker in an electrical accident, that is one of the things that OSHA is going to ask first off. Was this individual even qualified to be in there? Well, you're going to say, well, yeah, he's been doing this for 20 years. Well, that's not really going to cut it.
Right.
I mean, they're going to say, prove it. And just because he's been working there for 20 years doesn't mean he was qualified at all. So, that is a big piece of it. And I have a little trouble believing that a 1-hour training class is going to hold up as qualifications that this guy knew what he was doing in a 480 volt motor control center. So, but it's a big one that we get. It's how do we make sure that we're getting the right training for the right group of people? And what a lot of times they find out is that they really don't have the right group of people.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly true.
People they thought were qualified.
You made a good point. There's no college degree that makes you qualified. There's no state certification. If you're a state licensed electrician, if you've never had any safety training involving electrical hazards, you're unqualified regardless of what any kind of test you passed. And the other side of this is any training you give to your qualified people, make sure it's documented. I was in a power plant out in California not so long ago, and they had a wonderful training program for new electrical people coming on. They had kind of a high turnover. It's kind of surprising, but they had a very good training program. And I said, well, tell me what it is. And they went through every step. We do this. I said, do you have that written down? Well, no, but we just all know what it is. We do it the same way every time. Well, when somebody goes through it, do you write that down at the? Well, no, but that's just what we do. Well, document everything. Document your training program. Document when someone went through it. Document when you caught them doing it right. Document when you caught them doing it wrong. If you find some qualified person not doing it properly, they go back to the unqualified list and have to be retrained. So they had it, they just didn't write it down.
Right. Well, and another thing that I think companies really struggle with is when do we do training? And I feel that training, obviously safety training is a requirement today. Whether you're to the point where you've got individuals in clothing, PPE, and whether you're to the point where you've had an arc flash analysis, what we find a lot of times is that when we can come in and help a company with their training before or during or even in their initial planning stages, we're getting those electricians and those electrical maintenance people involved early. And a lot of times dispelling the myths that there are that surround spacesuits, funny looking clothes, because what people actually find when they understand what an arc flash analysis is they find out that they're actually going to be possibly wearing less clothing, and that companies such as us really aren't the bad guys, So I mean, what would you see be the differences between selecting to do training after an arc flash study or selecting to do training before? I mean, are there really any differences in the way that the training's delivered?
Well, it needs to be done as soon as possible if it's not already been done, because there are things that people need. It takes a while to do an arc flash analysis.
Yes,
if you decide Monday you want to get one done, it's not going to be done by Wednesday. So people need trained what to do until this analysis gets done and the labels go up. So things with tables, things with PPE that you already have on site and things like that. So there's training that needs done immediately.
Okay.
So, but once the arc flash analysis is done, it's good to do additional training. Then you can train on the specific equipment. Here's this piece of equipment that, for instance, is above a Cat 4. We can't work it live. Here's our procedures for that. Here's a piece of equipment. Here's the procedures for that. Okay. So it's good to do it before and after. Okay. And I own a training company, so I think you should train early and often.
Surely not.
That is definitely a hot topic with OSHA when they come in.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I think that's some good questions for today, and we'll see what we've got next time, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jay, and thank you for listening in.